I'm pretty sure you've heard how important habits are for your health and personal development. But thinking about your coding habits can have a profound impact in your career as well. If it's true that you're the sum of your habits, then your code must be the sum of your coding habits. And working on these will not only put a lot of time back in your pocket, but they'll definitely level up your career as well. And I don't know about you, but I could use a promotion. Take the first habit I'll share with you today, for example, and that's the habit of breaking down tasks into smaller ones. Let's say your manager asks you to build a first-run experience for the app. You're happy to do it, should be a matter of building a couple of UI screens and you're done. And then as you actually start doing the work, you realize a couple of things. It's actually 6 screens you needed to make, bit more than you expected, but should otherwise be fine. Oh, and you need to build a pagination system for that. Okay, looks like you'll need to render animations, and you don't have a framework for that yet. Oh, and we'll need to persist whether the user has seen it or not to determine when to show it. Assuming that time is not a problem, and it usually is, you push through this and you create a PR for it. And guess what? That senior engineer on your team is going to have opinions on all of these different things you had to do, and your PR is going to become a mess. Breaking down your tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks will make your reviews a lot easier, and it will also force you to consider things like writing more generic and reusable component. But there's a catch. This advice is flawed if you try to apply it too early. Before splitting the task too much, try and piece together a rough draft for it first. This is because tackling subtask number 6 will surface something you forgot to consider when doing subtask number 1, and you will need to go back and address that. If you go in and create a PR for number 1 without having at least prototyped the big picture, it's very likely you'll miss the target when you try and put everything together. Unless of course it's something really straightforward. So having that draft / proof of concept / prototype will give you the big picture, and then you can actually extract subtasks as their own isolated changes and polish those individually. The thing about this habit is that it basically feels like cheating. It's not super hard to start developing, and the benefits are endless. So hopefully you can see the power of developing habits around your coding. And the beautiful thing about habits is that you don't need to put in a ton of effort up front. You can start implementing them slowly and see them as these sort of tiny incremental improvements to your coding skills. James Clear develops this idea in his book Atomic Habits, and he calls it the 1% rule. The 1% rule states that over time, the majority of the rewards in a given field will accumulate to the people, teams, and organizations that maintain a 1% advantage over the alternatives. You don't need to be twice as good to get twice the results. You just need to be slightly better. And the classic example to illustrate this is with finance. Just think about the power of compound interest. If you can just get 1% better every day, after a year you would be 30 times better. Not 30%, 30 times better. That's an amazing return for just putting in the effort to get 1% better each day. Now, it might be useful to think about how we can actually measure that 1% when it comes to code. It's a very subjective and hard to measure discipline. So you can start with simple things like the number of pull requests you create, how much PR feedback you get from others, how many of those comments come from that senior engineer, or if you're working alone on projects of your own, just how fast you can check off features from your to-do list. But in the world of software development, those probably won't be enough. So I like to complement them with things like how often you feel overwhelmed, how often you feel productive and accomplished, and what does your manager and team think about your performance. It's always a good idea to ask them for feedback. And this is a good segue into the next habit. Your brain is made to have ideas, not to store them. And in our case, our brains should have the space to problem solve, not just try to remember stuff. But here's the deal breaker. You still need to have information handy to be a good performing programmer. I would know this. I struggle to remember even my address or phone number. And I've seen opportunities fly by because I didn't have the information at hand. I didn't write it down back then, I didn't remember it on the spot, and I missed an opportunity to help someone. So I really love the idea of keeping a dev journal. Here's one way I love to look at this. You know how we use source control in software development, so things like Git? Well, one of the biggest reasons we do is to keep track of changes in our code and have the ability to refer back to it, which is super useful, but code itself is only one of many dimensions of being a software engineer. Wouldn't it be great if you could apply some sort of source control to all of the other things you need to do? Things like organizing specs and designs and tracking your progress on them, conversations about the product and technical solutions that people brainstorm, documentation that proved helpful, or references to those obscure Stack Overflow threads that solved your oddly specific problem one day. Things like contacts. There's a wide array of people responsible for a wide array of things that can maybe help you with some stuff at some point. Getting in the habit of taking a few notes every day about things like these before closing your laptop or heading home is a really underrated skill. The amount of value you're able to provide to your team suddenly doubles or triples. First, because you suddenly have a sort of bird's eye view of everything that has been relevant for you to deliver whatever piece of software. And second, you put yourself in a position
Dạ, chạy theo em ở phương trời xa lắm em ơi, người ơi tình ơi, chạy đi đâu để có niềm vui với chốn nỗi buồn.
Chúng ta luôn đắng cay vào cuối ngày, chúng ta luôn đớn đau từng giây phút. Nếu em không giữ lấy niềm vui này thì trái tim em có bao giờ dây dứt. Giống như anh không quan tâm ta đã có bao niềm đau, anh không.
Câu chuyện khó tin nhưng